What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mellow Buzz. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm your host, Mike P., and thank you for taking the time to see what the Mellow Buzz is all about, and to join me on my journey of musical discovery. And to the returning Mellowheads, thank you for coming back for the continuation of my journey. Last week, we took a look at the rough and tough Memphis Mini. This week's episode, we'll take a look at a rockin' and rhythm and blues man, Chuck Willis. He was definitely ahead of the game, rockin' and rollin' while he played. Harold Willis was born on January 31st, 1928, to Willie James Willis and Rosa Lee Willis in the Grady Antoine district of Atlanta. Harold had two older brothers, Nathaniel and Willie Jr., and an older sister, Dorothy May. Soon after Harold's birth, Willie and Rosa Lee divorced. Willie Sr. worked the Southern Railroad and always was away, and whenever he was home, he would be drunk. And from what I pieced together, he was raised by his stepmother, Amelia. Now, there was never much in the house to eat, and because of this, as a baby, Harold developed serious ulcer issues that would plague him in his entire life. Every summer, once school left out, Harold and his brother Willie Jr. would go stay with his cousin Robert Willis out in the country for the entire summer. Robert was very prevalent and a very important person in Harold's life. During one of the summers in the country is when they all decided they wanted to become entertainers, and they needed to have nicknames. Now, Harold was always being called Chucky Lucky, which got shortened to Chuck. Willie Jr. was called Pete, and Robert took the name Chick. Back home in Atlanta, Chuck grew up near the famous 81 Theater on Decatur Street. Every Saturday, the theater held a variety show hosted by Snake Anthony. This is where Chuck got his first taste of entertaining an audience. Chuck also took gigs with traveling shows. At the age of 13, he was out with Clayton's Brown Skin Marbles when he got word that his stepmother Amelia had died. The showrunner refused to pay Harold, forcing him to hitchhike home for the funeral. As Chuck's reputation grew, it caught the eye of local DJ Zenas Sears, who went by the name of Daddy Sears. And sometime in 1947, Sears hosted a weekly talent show where Chuck would often star. Sears also got Chuck his first professional gig with the Red McAllister Orchestra. Eventually, Sears would become Chuck's unofficial manager, since there was never a contract signed. Sears knew someone with the Savoy record label and got them interested in Chuck. Herman Lubinsky, the founder of Savoy, flew down to Atlanta to hear both Chuck and another artist, Billy Wright. Herman passed on Chuck. Sometime later, Sears was having dinner with Columbia's R&B scout Danny Kessler. Danny wanted Sears to do some A&R work for Columbia. During dinner, Sears brought up Chuck, who at the time was painting Sears' house. Danny heard Chuck perform and was impressed, signing him to a contract. His first recording session for Columbia took place January 26, 1951. He recorded 4 songs: Can't You See, Be Good or Be Gone, It Ain't Right to Treat Me Wrong, and Let's Jump Tonight. The first and only single for Columbia was Can't You See and It Ain't Right to Treat Me Wrong, released in May of 1951. Chuck's second recording session took place on June 27, 1951. He recorded another 4 songs: I Tried to Get Along With You, My Baby's on My Mind, I Rule My House, and It's Too Late, Baby. And due to the lackluster reviews of his first single, Chuck was moved to the Columbia subsidiary OK Records. In July of 1951, OK released I Rule My House and I Tried to Get Along With You, neither being national hits. I Tried to Get Along With You peaked at number 6 on the New Orleans charts. Chuck had a total of 17 recording sessions with OK, the final one 5 years to the day of his first. The biggest hits to come from these sessions were My Story, which was recorded in June of 1952 and spent 10 weeks on the national R&B charts, peaking at number 2. A cover of Fats Domino's Going to the River, recorded in February of 1953, and I Feel So Bad, recorded in September of 1953. Sometime in early 1953, Chuck married Dorothy Sladler and had 3 children: twins Ralph and Wanda Jean, born in 1954, and Cynthia, born in 1955. In July of 1953, saw Chuck get his first tour, It was 91 days and took him all over the U.S. Northeast. At the time, his cousin Chick was on the payroll as a chauffeur and would sometimes open the shows. The tour saw Chuck at the Ritz Theater in Akron, Ohio, Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom, all the theaters in Virginia, and many VFW halls. During the tour, Roy Gaines joined Chuck. Believe it or not, Roy was the first guitarist in Chuck's band. Chuck toured constantly through 1955. The hardships of constant touring led to his ulcer problem getting worse, and this led Chuck to turn to alcohol to numb the pain. He had a reported serious relapse in late 1955, sending him to the hospital. After Chuck's contract with OK Records ended in 1956, he signed with Atlantic Records and Jesse Stone. His first sessions with Atlantic took place in April of 1956. In total, he had 6 recording sessions with Atlantic, the last one taking place in February of 1958. The biggest hits to come from Chuck's Atlantic sessions were It's Too Late, released in May of 1956, which peaked at number 3 on the national R&B charts. Juanita, released in October of 1956 and peaked at number 7 on the R&B charts. And his biggest hit, CC Rider, released in March of 1957, making it number 1 on the national R&B charts and number 12 on the national pop charts. And Betty and Dupree, released November 1957, which reached number 15 on the national R&B charts and 33 on the national pop charts. CC Rider would be played constantly on American Bandstand, getting its own dance called the Stroll. It was in September of 1957 that Chuck would perform CC Rider on American Bandstand while the kids did the Stroll. Again, Chuck would be on the constant grind of touring. His ulcer issue kept getting worse. Soon after his American Bandstand appearance in September of 1957, he was hospitalized for 5 days, diagnosed with bleeding ulcers. In reality, his constant ulcer problem turned cancerous. But being a tough SOB, he returned to touring. Chuck's last performance was on American Bandstand, airing March 31st, 1958, performing What Am I Living For?, which was released earlier in the month, along with Hang Up My Rock and Roll Shoes. Many proclaim the single to be his masterpiece, and maybe a bit of foreshadowing, because just 10 days later, on April 10th, 1958, Harold Chuck Willis died. He was buried at Southview Cemetery, Atlanta, Fulton County, Georgia, survived by his wife and 3 children. Again, he was another great blues musician to die young and penniless. He would pay his band members out of pocket, never taking into account taxes needing to be paid. At the time of his death, he owed the government a lot of money. So let's remember Harold Chuck Willis and give Hang Up My Rock and Roll Shoes a listen.
My mama told me she didn't like that rock and roll. I said, please, mama, please. Mama, you just don't know I don't want to hang up my rock and roll shoes. You know I get that feeling every time I hear those blues. That music got a beat that will keep you alive. The kids are rock and rolling from 8 to 25. I don't want to hang up my rock and roll shoes, because I get that feeling every time I hear those blues. Yes, I will do my homework, clean the yard every day. Yes, I will wash those dishes. I'll do anything you say. They said that rock and roll will soon fade away. No matter what they say, rock and roll is here to stay. I don't want to hang up my rock and roll shoes, because my feet start moving every time I hear those blues. said that rock and roll will soon fade away. No matter what they say, rock and roll is here to stay. I don't want to hang up my rock and roll shoes, because I get that feeling every time I hear the blues. Because my feet start moving every time I hear the blues. Shoot, bop, shoot, bop, shoot, bop, shoot, bop.
And that was Chuck Willis, Hang Up My Rock and Roll Shoes. Again, I heard something new, something different. And that you could hear many influences. You heard the doo-wop, you heard the blues, you heard rock and roll. I mean, with the piano, it was Little Richard. And very poetic to be one of his last singles to be released. Just have him die that soon after. And it's weird that back then they thought, rock and roll was a phase. It was just going to be a little thing. There's no way that it's going to take off. Were they wrong? So, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this part of my journey. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please, everybody, hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you've got any suggestions on how I could improve the show. If there's anybody you'd like me to feature, please let me know. I'll search my dad's collection, see if I have any music by him. And again, thank you for taking the time. This is the Mellow Buzz. Everybody take care.